Yeah, I think you're right on. The other problem we have, and I do see that as a problem, is as we talked about, James mentioned, is the narrow margins in the livestock sector. You need to have volume in order to support a lifestyle that the rest of your constituents are going to be able to have if they go off and leave the farm. So we need to address how are we going to supply an opportunity for a young individual to come back to the operation and yet enjoy the lifestyle and the conveniences that his classmates as they graduate from the upper level education will be able to do. And so I think that's a real concern as we move forward. And we talk about economic activity, that we've got to make sure we build this, that everybody through the chain can have a level of that revenue so that they can appreciate not only the back to their operation, but maintain a lifestyle that they're comfortable with.
No, agreed. And it's pretty hard to, the lifestyle in and of itself is something that most of us grew up in and obviously we're attracted to. But when the give and take is so slanted one way or the other, you just, what they say, the juice isn't worth the squeeze at some point, and that's disheartening to see that taking place. And when you look at the dollars invested, I mean, through my career of 30 years, if you made $100 on a pen of cattle, whether it was from, as a backgrounder or a feeder or all the way through, that's incredible. Well, look at the difference in the investment today. When you get, $1,500 a head tied up in that deal compared to when you had $500 a head, the $100 bill looked pretty good. And now, and 100 would be a home run, that you just would be unheard of. And it's extremely difficult. And I think really the things that we're talking about as far as, in the banking industry and the things that I've seen is just how producers have stepped up over the last 5 and 10 years. And I mean, these guys and ladies are the best, agronomists. I think about how, livestock was produced 20, 30 years ago compared to now, and just the quality of the animals that are out there, their, how the producers are engaged in what the consumer is looking for and how they're trying to, maneuver their operation so that it meets consumer demand. Most the successful operators that I deal with, I mean, they're better at the financial side than we are as bankers. The marketing that they have to do, the agronomy, I mean, it's just amazing. And how the applied technology, and I look forward, 5 and 10 years. I remember sitting at a South Dakota Ag Bankers Conference probably 20 years ago, 15 maybe. And essentially what they were talking about is, variable rate application that might be coming down the line. And we all looked around the room at each other going, wow, that's pretty neat. Well, I mean, it happens every day. These guys have more technology in their tractor than we've had for years. So it's just, I think the constant evolution and the changes that all of us are going to have to make to keep up with that and support our producers is it's challenging. I think the producers have been up for the challenge, or it seems to me like, and some that aren't are maybe choosing to do things different or do different things. But yeah, I kind of rambled there. Sorry.
No, I think this is Glenn again. I think you're right on, and you look at not only that, but genetics, what's happened. And I know in our part of the world, it's, you look at early August, there was a lot of folks that would have had already given up on their crops, and come to find out that the majority of the folks I speak throughout the state the crops or yields are exceeding their expectations. Now, maybe their expectations were too low, but to me, it's tremendous with the stress that these crops went through. And Bonnie, you could speak to that better, that the yields that we're getting based on the growing season and the conditions that we encountered this summer. And I think that same thing can be said of livestock, their efficiencies and so forth. So we become very efficient, and now we need to find a way to market that efficiency and do it so we can all have some benefits throughout the chain financially. And I want to stay away from that profits term, as we said, but I think that's going to be critical.
Well, and if I could jump in again, I think you bring up a great point. I mean, even from my side of the desk as a banker, what do? We challenge folks to, how do you become more efficient? What can we, look to cut for expenses and so forth. And that's great. And that has created just a superbly, efficient operations, no matter what commodity you're involved in. But then in fairness, I think it's time that, I tell you what, most of these ladies and gentlemen in the ag production business, they're efficient operators. Now, how do we get some more of that profit side out to do the things that we're talking about? And again, I'm going to start using economic activity rather than profit. And I think even from the lender standpoint, we've got to continue to challenge ourselves to help where we can with that, rather than just, hey, what can we do to, let's look at the income side of it, because the expense side and some of that efficiency, we're kind of getting there. It's about out.
Well, if I can jump in,
Yeah.
I agree. We've, striven for efficiency, and guys are so good. And Judge said, we got to take that 30,000-foot view sometimes. And I agree wholeheartedly. You have to look at that big picture. But at the same time, I think so often, so many of the guys I see that are very successful are really good at looking straight down between their own 2 feet and seeing more opportunity without having to put more capital in, without having to buy more land. They can look at, hey, what are we doing with this old barn that we haven't used for 20 years? What are we doing with this little pasture down by the creek? I mean, where can we stack some enterprises that can throw some profit at our entire operation? And I think that those guys that can get creative and start doing some things just a little bit differently are the ones that really, are kicking butt right now and doing a good job.
No, that's a good point. Thank you. For the viewers, if you will, if there are any questions, Mikey, can you tell them? They probably already know, but what they need to do I think you could just go to the raise your hand and.
Yeah, you can either go to the raise your hand, or there should be a question and answer box below on your Zoom bar. And you can put your questions in there if you have any. We'd love to answer them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Our technology advisor, or my technology advisor, how about? Other things that are on anybody in the group's mind that we want to touch on. I'm kind of trying to look through my bifocals here and see what all I missed on my notes, but jump in, anyone, please.
One thing I'll touch on as far as bringing people together, and you're talking about trying to bring young people in, be a mentor, reach out to these young people and be a mentor and offer them guidance and open your mind, because they may do things differently, or they may think differently on maybe how things should be done. But if you build a relationship, you might be able to learn something from the kids, as well as teach them give them the opportunity to not have to make all of the same mistakes that you did. So I guess that's something I see in bringing young people an opportunity, and they might not all have as much access to land, or not everybody's folks has the resources to give them the opportunity to come back. But if you can somehow, give them a little bit of opportunity and encouragement. So often we say, oh, you don't want to do that anyway, but let's not take their dreams away, and let's try to help them out as best we can.
I think that's a really good point that you bring up, and it is interesting. Doesn't happen, real often, but I can think of some instances in our neighborhood that there's some pretty successful farmers that don't really have a next generation because of what kids have chosen to do and so forth, that are actually out, looking for someone to bring in to mentor and possibly even take over an operation. So I think both sides have to have their eyes open to those opportunities. And I think for most of us, I know, like for me and where I'm at, I've got a young lender that's been there a couple years, and that's part of what makes me tick is I enjoy trying to pass on what little knowledge I might have to that individual, and it's fun. And I think others in whatever business you're in, probably enjoy that as well. So thank you. Well, Judge, you've drove a little further now. I mean, I can't believe you don't have some more wisdom to share with us, please.
My wife is driving, so they're
Oh.
safe now.
Okay.
No, I don't. I'm pondering a lot of things that was said today, so I appreciate this. Again, it's been good. We're in this together. Don't you remember that?
Yep. Well, we've got about 15 minutes here. Not that we necessarily probably have to use up all the time. I'm not seeing any questions. Let's just kind of go around the room here with any final thoughts and comments, and maybe we'll just wrap up and go from there. James, the one that mentioned this, so I'm going to pick on him first. We'll kind of go around the room. What's backwards on my screen? So you're up, sir.
Well, I appreciate it. I guess more than anything, I just want to say thank you for putting this together. You know, without a forum, without a place, without somebody spearheading efforts for us to get together and talk to people and talk to each other, it doesn't happen. We all get busy in our own little worlds, and that can, dictate a lot of our day and our week and our month and on and on. So I just really appreciate the chance to be here. Like Judge said, there's been a lot of really good comments that I've got notes here written down, pondering things, thinking about things. Obviously, we want to work together to do whatever we can for the betterment of agriculture, for the betterment of the consumer, the producers alike. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak with everybody today.
Thank you. Bonnie, I will go to you next.
Okay, well, I too would like to say thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and just everything that has been talked about is, I think, thought provoking, and that we just all have to remember, as people in agriculture and beyond, that whatever we do can make a difference. And so if we have information that's new in our industries, or that we think someone else might be interested in teaming up, is to share that information and to find those commonalities. I think that a lot of us are already doing that, but there's always opportunities ahead to do that. And sometimes we just don't always, necessarily take the time maybe to do that, but it's something that could make a difference for everybody. So when conventions and things come up, maybe just being a part of some of those and listening to the issues that they have at their conventions and learning some things just might help us to, I guess, bridge some of these things that we've talked about today. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.